Well, good morning, everybody. Or at least it's morning while Connie and I are here. It's Friday morning, and we're this morning. Connie and I. Connie's from the American Red Cross, and we're going to be talking about water safety. We're Florida, and water is around the corner for everyone. I don't think there's anybody in the Treasure Coast or the Space Coast that's more than walking distance from a body of water. So Connie, go ahead. Let's see what we got.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Connie Harvey. I'm with the American Red Cross, and I am the director of the Aquatic Centennial Initiative for the Red Cross. And that is all about our mission of water safety and drowning prevention. The Red Cross has been, we added drowning prevention to our mission in 1914. So we've been at it for a very long time. Yeah, it's a pretty significant part of what we do. Yes, 100 years. And so when we marked our 100 years, we launched this campaign called the Centennial Campaign, where we're helping make swimming lessons and water safety training more available, affordable, and accessible, especially in communities where the drowning rates are higher than the national average. And I get the honor of leading that. It's an awesome opportunity for us to really make a difference in community where the need is greatest.
Very cool. Very cool. So today we're going to be you're going to be presenting on we're going to be focusing on, people who are caregiving perhaps for their grandchildren or for neighbors' kids or just young kids in general, and that, like me, are maybe, a little bit past the age of 50,
Right.
So.
Yeah, water safety is important for us all the time. And I will be, as we go through the deck here, I will be showing you some of the stats that probably will be surprising to most people. But water safety is especially relevant to grandparents. You are often caregivers for your children's children. And while, when you were a parent and with young children at home, you probably were more prepared for situations if you had a backyard pool or if you had a canal in your backyard. You had those extra precautions in place because you were always had that responsibility. Right. As you move into new homes where you don't have young children, you may not be thinking about that in the same way. But you really need to do so if you have any children who will be coming to your home visiting on a regular basis or even an infrequent basis. It's just so important to have those precautions in place because drowning is fast. It can happen in an instant. And it's silent. Many times it's silent. So a child can slip out of your home undetected. You may think that you really are watching, but when you really think hard about it, you cannot watch a child 100% of the time. As good of a parent as you think you are, as good of a caregiver or grandparent, there are lapses in supervision. And if there's water around your home, there can be tragic consequences.
Absolutely. I know, I was saying to you earlier before we started taping that Mike and I just moved into our home, and we happened to be looking around the other day, and I realized, I don't have the plug covers over the electrical outlets or the safety latches on my, they're just a pain in the neck for Mike and I. Our
right.
Don't want to be dealing with that. So when my grandchildren come to visit, I'm expecting that I'm probably going to have to be making minimally some temporary adaptations in advance of their visits.
Absolutely. All right, so we ready to get started?
I think we are, Connie. Connie's going to share her screen now, and we're going to start to go through some great facts and figures.
All right, let's get this rolling. There we go. All right, so we call this Do Your Part, Be Water Smart. Everybody has a part to play here in being water smart. So that's what this presentation is all about today, to help you be water smart. So it comes to a surprise as many that drowning is a global pandemic. It is at every country, essentially, has drowning as an issue. The United States is also in that boat. And of course, Florida, as you all know, I'm sure you understand that drowning is a leading cause of death, especially for kids in our state. So when we talk about drowning, it's the leading cause of accidental death for kids between the ages of 1 and 4. And it's the second leading cause of accidental death for kids under the age of 14. I'm going to show you a slide that says, in fact, that it is a leading cause of accidental death for people in every age group.
You know, that was so interesting to me when we looked at that slide before, because you would not think that it would be in every single age group. You think of it.
That's right.
An under, an under 10-year-old issue.
And how and where people drown changes as they age. And we can talk about that a little bit today as well. So as tragic as those stats are, about 3,700 people die a year from drowning. And that's about 350 children that drown each year between the ages of 1 and 4. For every child that dies from drowning, another 5 end up in the emergency department. And when we think about what the results of that can be, they can also be very catastrophic with brain damage that can last a lifetime. It can be very catastrophic. So about 10 people drown in the US a day. It's an average across the year. And for children, home pools are the #1 place kids between the ages of 1 and 4 drown. And when they drown in a backyard pool, they were last seen in the home. They were out of sight for less than 5 minutes. And they were in the care of one or both parents or caregivers at the time, which is why being very active and proactive about water safety, especially if you have bodies around your water, bodies of water around your home, is just really so very critical. So as I mentioned, it is the #1 cause of accidental death for kids between 1 and 4, but every circle on this chart illustrates where drowning falls in the top 10 leading causes of accidental death for, and you'll see it's in every age group. And it's the 6th leading cause of death. I may have said 5th there. It's the 6th leading cause of accidental death in 2018, which is the latest year that we have fatality data for. So I'll talk a little bit about where drownings happen at the different age groups. Under 1, bathtubs. So that is, again, as a grandparent caregiver, you are likely going to be in a position at some point of bathing your grandchild. And it is so important that you never, ever step away from the child in the bathtub, even for a moment. You gather up everything that you need before you go to the tub, and you stay with them within arm's reach the entire time. In children 1 to 4, it's home pools. Home pools is by far the leading cause of the place where children drown the most. Once they start getting above 5 years old, and now all the way to about that 55 mark, it's natural water. So at this point, they're starting to be more adventurous, looking for other places to play in the water. And so now we're talking about lakes, streams, rivers.
And where they might not be, and then where they might not necessarily be under a parent supervision. So
Absolutely.
After school going out with his buddies, and he decides he's going to go fishing, or whatever.
Right. Absolutely. And that truly is why that conversation about water safety for us all the time needs to be happening, is, by understanding that it changes. And you may have had those conversations with them when you're around the pool. You may not be thinking about what could be happening as they're growing up. Just as you would be talking to a 16-year-old about not drinking and driving, you should have the conversation with them about choosing safe places to swim. And then, as you get into the older age groups, alcohol becomes a factor. Yeah. There's often, when there's a drowning for an older person, an adult, there is often alcohol involved. Not always, but often. But you can also have medical emergencies that are now happening. So somebody could be exercising in the water and have a heart attack. Right. And then they may have been able to survive the heart attack on land, but they, depending on where they were, if lifeguards were on duty, it's going to be tougher to survive that while you're in the water, because now you have to get out of the water first. And then as you get into the 75 and up, then bathtubs become an issue again, slips and falls. So very interesting. Again, the idea that, you know, water safety needs to be top of mind for us all through our lives. So this is a very sad chart, and it's a sad chart that's even worse than what it was when I put this together just 1 week ago. So this is a sampling of what the state of Florida reports on. This is from the Department of Children and Families, Department of Children and Families. And we can look at what the fatalities that have happened. I have filtered this for drowning. This is what has happened so far in 2020. The point here that I was originally illustrating and continue to reinforce, that you see how many of those were the home pool. So a very common scenario is the child gets out of the home undetected and into the water. Here we have a pond. Another common situation is when there is a group of people together, like here there's a birthday party. And so we can often have a situation where everybody thinks somebody else is watching more than they are.
Well, and where you're visiting somebody else's home, it might not have been, you know, or you're at an Airbnb. I think this one happened in an Airbnb, and so
yep,
you know, you're not necessarily as familiar with the surroundings. You might not know all the egresses out of the house, and you realize that, you know, hey, there's a door from that master bathroom out to the pool that you weren't thinking about, and you know, zip, they're out there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me tell you why I say this is even a sadder chart than it was when I put it together a week ago, is we're now at 41. So just since you and I talked last week, we've had 3 more child drownings.
3 more kids.
All of them got out of the house undetected into their backyard swimming pool.
And is this nationwide or Florida?
Florida.
Florida, wow.
Florida, yeah. And one was in Orange County, so one was very close to home for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, so it's important to kind of level set with those statistics so you really understand the scope of the problem. But we're here to talk about some solutions and things that you can do to be empowered so that you can prevent drowning, because drowning is preventable. So a question that I always like to ask people is, can you swim? And thinking now in these terms, can your grandchildren swim?
Well, you know, and that's a really good question. I mean, I think that when I was younger, I was a really confident swimmer. I was a lifeguard, and I was very comfortable around water. But you know, I'm in my 60s now, and you know, I don't know that I could swim the lengths that I could when I was 20. So you know, even as we age, I think that, you know, our level of being able to swim changes and modifies, and I think we need to be aware of that.
Absolutely. Understanding your abilities, especially when you're going to be put in the position of being a supervisor of others around water.
Right.
So we ask that question, and when I'm in a room, most people raise their hand, yes, I can swim. But then we lay out these questions to say, all right, now let us tell you what we believe it means to be able to answer yes to that question. So we did a national survey, and 85% of Americans said yes, they can swim. But when we go down these set of skills, only 56% say, oh yeah, I can do all of those. So this, we call this the skills of water competency. It's the ability to step or jump into water over your head, then return to the surface to float or tread for about a minute. Turn around in a full circle to look for an exit, then swim to that exit without getting out. For our measure here, we say 25 yards. That's a very common length of a pool, a public pool for sure. It's bigger than many backyard pools, and then being able to get out of the water. And if you're in a pool, being able to get out without using the ladder, because that safest, quickest place may not be where there is a ladder. Now, if you think about this, this is essentially replicating a fall in the water. So let me kind of go through those again. Okay, so you step or jump into water over your head. And then you come back to the surface, and we say float or tread water for a minute. And that's to gather your bearings, like, ooh, okay, what just happened here? Get a sense of, you know, just calm down, reduce the panic. then turn around in a circle. And what you're trying to do there is look for the closest, safest exit point, and then be able to swim to that exit and get out in whatever circumstance you might be in. So some other things to understand about this idea of water competency is that conditions can change your water competency level. So what you can do in a swimming pool may not be the same thing you can do in a river, or the same thing that you can do in an ocean. And we really stress the need to have swimming lessons until you can, at minimum, until you can complete this in whatever environment you'll be swimming in. So when we're in a pool for Red Cross Learn to Swim, that takes you to about Learn to Swim level 3. But if you're going to be in an ocean or in a river, you're going to need more stamina, more distance to be able to handle the cold, the currents, the drop-offs that you might experience.
The distance. I was thinking about, boating accidents where you might find yourself in the water and you might be a ways from shore, and
absolutely.
You might not have it if you didn't have your life preserver on. And we're talking about those later. But.
You got it. So when the Red Cross talks about learning to swim, we are often talking about it from a water safety perspective, a drowning prevention, promotion kind of perspective. But learning to swim is amazing, and it is fun, and it opens up a world of opportunities. And this tree kind of illustrates all the different things that somebody will have the opportunity to do once they know how to swim. And it is a combination of things from recreation to leisure to workforce development to careers, to rehab. I mean, there's so many things that you can do once you know how to swim.
Yeah.
And there are many, many benefits, health and physical and mental benefits to swimming. So from being able to improve your flexibility, there is a kind of a therapeutic result just from being in the water, being immersed in the water, the way the pressure is on your body. It's low impact. I imagine many of you listening here have had physical therapy that said, you know what, water aerobics would be good for you. And then of course we also see here the mental benefits that, just exercise in general is good for you. But there are so many great things that come about that, from improved learning and mental performance. There are studies that show with the little guys when they're starting to learn to swim, that it increases their ability to concentrate in school. They are learning quicker how to be organized and disciplined in a classroom and take direction. So swimming lessons are good for us at all ages, and the ability to swim is great for us at all ages.
It's a lifelong skill too. I mean, there are some things that we can do when we're younger, and I'm not going to get on a pair of ice skates anytime soon. I'm not
right.
anytime soon.
Right.
Skateboarding days probably behind me.
All gone.
But
yeah.
Cool. But swimming is something I can do for as long as I choose to do it.
That's exactly right. You got it. Okay, so we are going to talk about the concept of water competency. So I already mentioned the skills of water competency, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more too. But water competency is a combination of being water smart, having water skills, and being able to help others. So being water smart, you're doing it right now. You're learning more about water safety. And so being water smart is all about being able to prevent accidents from happening in the first place, having a good, safe environment, making good choices around the water. The Red Cross, during COVID, as we are doing this virtual kind of thing now in response to how we can get information to the communities that we serve, the Red Cross has done the same thing. We have it's a free online course that's called Water Safety for Parents and Caregivers. It takes about 20 minutes, and it talks about water safety in general. the different areas of concern, all the different environments that water safety should be thought about, from your home to your backyard pool to whether you're going to natural environments and such. And then it also teaches what you can do to in the event that something does go wrong. So I encourage you to take this course, redcross.org/take a class. Again, about 20 minutes of your time. You do get a certificate at the end if that's of interest to you. And share it with your children, or the parents of those grandbabies of yours. Make sure that they know this too. One of the most common phrases that I hear when I work with a family who has lost a child to drowning, and I am involved with many, is "I didn't know." And the "I didn't know" ranges in so many ways, but and it often starts with "I did not know that drowning was a leading cause of death for kids." So if you don't know that, you aren't going to arm yourself against that.
And it just breaks your heart. It's just so preventable.
Exactly. But if you don't know, then you don't know, and you need to understand there are proactive steps to take to make certain that that we prevent drowning. So I'm talking now about the circle of drowning prevention. These are things that help make you water smart. So one of the most important tenets is providing close and constant attention to children you are supervising in or near the water. And I would say that many people do a pretty good job of that, especially if they are in a situation with it's their family unit. When other distractions get added in, that's when things can go very wrong, whether we're talking about a pool party or something like that. But when we talk about close and constant supervision, we talk about reach supervision. So for those who cannot swim, the little guys, you need to be within arm's reach, so that in the event that anything starts to go wrong, you're right there to be able to handle that. Another thing to know is that many drownings in home pools happen during non-swim time. So they were already done. They've been swimming, they've been in their life jackets all day. Everybody thought they were done, but the child is drawn back to the water. So whenever you have water nearby, you need to think about that all the time. And that's why the physical barriers and such are so important, because you cannot provide that constant supervision as you go about your daily life. So you need to prevent other ways for kids to get access to that water.
I'm thinking about, just like you were saying before, having folks, you have folks over, we're in the pool for the afternoon, okay, time for everybody to get out, get dressed. We're going to go in and we're going to start making dinner, and nobody's paying attention to the 4-year-old.
Well, and the doors are shut. I mean, you just don't think that could happen, but it happens at almost 70% of the drownings that happen for under 4s. It was during non-swim time.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this kind of leads right into, this is why the fencing your pool with 4-sided fencing is so important. And what we mean by that is sometimes we see that the house is the barrier. So it's on 3 sides, but you say, okay, well, I've got my screen door. Nobody can get into my house from outside of my property, but they often, as you saw in that chart that I showed you from the Department of Children and Families, they mostly get out of their own home or the home that they are in undetected. And so having 4-sided fencing, so that it's all the way around your pool, so that there is something that prevents them from going inside your house into that pool. And there are a few other measures that you can take to have what we call layers of protection. And so that includes things like alarms on the doors, locks on the doors that are out of the reach of a child, alarms on the water itself, like water alarms, so that if the surface tension is broken, an audible sound is heard. So we are going to hear a little bit more about preventing unsupervised access to water. So let me talk a little bit more here. multiple layers of protection. What the fences should be, at least, again, four-sided, 4 feet high with self-closing, self-latching gates. And then we've got the locks and alarms, including pet doors. People often forget to consider that that is an access point. Anything that leads to the water should be locked. Pool and spa covers and alarms. And then here are a couple of really important pieces of advice. When children aren't intended to be in the water, keep the pool toys out of the water and out of sight. You don't want anything that's going to draw the child into the pool when they shouldn't be there. And then keeping things that they could climb on.
Yeah. A couple of my grandbabies are climbers, man, and they're just like, you know,
yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So you really need to make certain that there's nothing that they can pull over. If you have the above ground pools, getting those ladders away and locked away so that they cannot climb up them. I mean, probably many of you have seen the video where a child actually is climbing up the locked cover on that pool. And so getting it out of the pool is so important. And then if you have the inflatable pools, you know, especially this year in COVID, those are flying off the shelf. People are putting the more portable pools in their backyards. You have got to make certain that there's no access to that water, and that might mean either putting a cover on it, but it could also mean just dumping the water out and turning it over so that even when it rains, you can't collect water in there that becomes then a drowning hazard. Okay, so next up, we are going to see a video that gives us a little bit more information about preventing unsupervised access to home pools.
Preventing a child from entering a pool when you don't expect them to be there, when they're unsupervised, is one of the greatest challenges about being around a swimming pool. The reason we focus on the home pool is because that's where your child under age 5 is drowning in the United States. But we have fabulous science to show that the most important, most effective way to prevent a child from getting into that water is to be sure there's a fence around the whole pool, so that it's enclosed 4 sides with a self-closing gate that also self-latches so that the child can't get in. And we recommend that because the data shows that that works to prevent drowning deaths. Here are the things I'd like for people who are going to live with a pool, or even setting one up in the backyard in the summer. You know, the inflatables or the above ground pools, any body of water there in the backyard. One, you have to really be thinking about it as something that needs attention, that you need to have put some thought into how are you going to make it safe for your child to be around that, or your grandchild who's visiting. If it's there, you should fence this thing. That's the best. And then the added pieces would be the pool cover, the pool alarm, the lock on the back door. Water safety is a family affair. It's not just about the child who's being taught how to swim. It has to involve the family.
So to get a little bit more information about what you can do to make your home pool safer, there's a course that the Red Cross has. It is called Home Pool Essentials. We did this with the National Swimming Pool Foundation. It's a combination of how to handle handle the maintenance side of your pool, but also the safety side of your pool. You can find that at homepoolessentials.org. But the Consumer Product Safety Commission also has a publication called Safety Barrier Guidelines for Residential Pools, and it provides a great deal of information, very specific detail about what you should have around your pool to provide those barriers. And you can get that at poolsafely.gov. All right, so another layer of protection is learning swimming and water safety survival skills. And so we talked a little bit, I introduced you to the idea of water competency. You know, swimming lessons at the Red Cross, we start with classes as young as 6 months. It's a parent-child class. It's apparent in any adult class, really, where it's one-on-one with the parent and child, and then they're in a group instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And it is as much for the adult in the water to learn about water safety and handling their children well in the water, and laying a foundation for future swimming skills. And then we have preschool aquatics and learn to swim levels 1 through 6. And then we also have swimming lessons for adults. So you can look for those at, just call your local Parks and Rec department, Jewish Community Center, YMCA, lots of opportunities for swimming lessons. So let's hear a little bit more about water competency.
Water competency is the idea that water safety is more than just knowing how to swim. What's water safety for one setting is not the same as water safety for another setting. What you can do in a lake is different from what you can pull off in a surf or in a current.
We came up with 5 skills that were related to the minimum someone should know to be safe engaging in the water. That was entering the water safely and coming back to the surface, treading water for about 1 minute, turning and orientating themselves to the exit of the pool, orientating themselves into a swim position and moving about 25 yards or meters in the water, and then exiting the water safely.
We need to be thinking about water safety, water competency as a continuum, if you will, of water safety from before you get in to when you're in, and then lastly also to helping others.
This is a beginning of a conversation. We'll continue to look at it, but it is a good starting point.
So life jackets are also an important layer of protection. We recommend that children, inexperienced swimmers, and all boaters wear U.S. Coast Guard approved life jackets. But there's some important info about choosing a right life jacket. So we advocate that you always wear a life jacket whenever you are boating or participating in recreational activities on the water, such as stand-up paddle boards or that kind of thing. We suggest that you keep weak or non-swimmers, and then whenever they are in or near water. So, if you're out fishing, make sure they're wearing a life jacket because they could slide into the water. We want you to wear one that is U.S. Coast Guard approved, and you will know that because it's stamped right on the jacket. And so you'll see the screenshot here that it shows that there is a user weight and the chest size. And there is an approval number right there. So you know it's Coast Guard approved because you will see this label and you will see the number from the Coast Guard. For the little ones, you want a life jacket that is going to have a collar that provides head support and then a strap between their legs. And I'll show you a picture of that coming up here in a few minutes. It is super important to understand the difference between toys and swimming aids versus a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket.
I looked at this and I thought, wow, you look at these two and I would not be able to tell you which one's the necessary. And just looking at it that way, without looking at the tag, I would not be able to tell you which one was the Coast Guard approved life preserver and what's not just a blow up swimmy thing.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I will show you how to be able to tell the difference there. And it certainly, you should not rely on the kind of the marketing part of the packaging, but you really need to look at the labels on the device itself. So swimming toys.
I was going to say, I got to say, I'm at risk of offending people who are really fans of them. I'm not particularly a fan of the aids the swimmies that are toys, the water wings.
Right.
We'll be talking later on about over reliance. But if it's not okay to be used as a life preserver, then
right.
Then I wouldn't use it.
Yes, and that's
put a life preserver on.
Beth, you are water smart, so that's a very, very good choice. Because the water wings, the things that they can, they slide, you just blow them up and slide. Any inflatable can deflate.
Right.
So, and then you also think about the way you put those on, you get them wet and slide them on. So they could just as easily slide off.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that's why we definitely recommend that you wear things that are U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket, like the foam noodles. You see a lot of kids rely upon those, and they can be great fun and can certainly provide some support, but think about how easily they could slide off of those and then you end up in a tragedy. So whenever you're using those, you need to be within arm's reach, as you know, as if they were wearing nothing, because at some point there's where that accident could happen and then you can end up in a tragedy. So we are showing which one is not U.S. Coast Guard approved. And as you look closely at this, you will see that there is a warning label right on it. The first line that, again, they do a pretty slick job here because they make that label look somewhat similar to the U.S. Coast Guard approval label. But you need to read it, and you'll see the very first line on that is warning, this is not a life-saving device.
Mm-hmm.
Where this one is U.S. Coast Guard approved. Again, the look is very, very similar, but you will see that it has, again, I will show you here the user weight. So this one is intended for a child, provides the user weight between 30 and 50 pounds, and then it has a U.S. Coast Guard approval number on it. So that's the way that you are able to tell if it is U.S. Coast Guard approved or not. And that means that it has been tested for buoyancy, and you know, there are safety tests that go along with that.
So
Let's talk.
before we move on, I have a question. This is a kind of off-the-wall question we hadn't discussed before, but is there kind of a life use expectancy on life jackets? How long are they good for? How long, if they've been in the water for a long time? I mean, you know, I'm wondering whether or not, you know, you could have life jackets and life preservers in the closet for decades. Are they still as good?
Well, they can be, depending on how they've been cared for over time. So you always want to inspect them to make certain that that all the buckles and snaps are still working properly, the zippers are working properly, that there is nothing coming out from any of this stitching. So if you have used them in a way that they have been, you know, you hose them off after each use, you hang them to dry, they're hanging, or you know, there's nothing on them, then there's a good chance that these can last a very long time. Now, if there is anything that makes you feel like they're not doing their job, get a new one. But the things that you need to be looking out for are any rips or tears, any of the foam coming out, but also think about how you're storing them. If they're being stored and something's on it, that could be messing with the buoyancy factor. Right. So it's like if they're in a closet and boxes have been sitting on it, there's a chance that you probably need to think about getting a new one.
You know, I was also thinking about storing stuff out in the garage when in Florida. So much plastic gets really brittle really quickly.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, it's got, you know, the buckles and those sorts of, I think there's stuff we got to think about. You're right. Where do we store our life jackets?
Yep. I store mine on a coat rack down in our storage unit where we use our kayaks. So they are, you know, they have good airflow. So nothing's on them that could squish them. And so, and then really it's important to, you know, wash them off after each use, because between the chlorine and the salt water, those are things that can degrade the materials that they're made of.
Good to know.
So, okay, so I want to show you kind of the difference here in, you know, these are the more preferred type of life jackets for general use. You'll see with this little guy that he's got the head support. There's no way he would be holding his head up on his own if he ended up in the water. And you'll see that he's got a strap that goes between his legs. So that keeps the life jacket in position. And the life jacket should be good and secure. So see how it is on this little gal? I mean, it's tight on her. You can see that while it is, you know, the shoulders come up a tad, it's not going to come up over her. So, and she's probably one that's been in swim lessons. You know, she doesn't, you know, but again, they're close to shore. You know, there's someone right there with them taking the picture, so that there is that parental supervision. It does not, you know, wearing a life jacket does not replace any of that close and constant active supervision, but it certainly can buy some time if a child ends up in the water. And again, every time you're on a boat, those children should be in a life jacket. And I would say I kind of don't even, I don't care what size the boat is. If they're on a boat, they should be in a life jacket. And oh, by the way, parents and grandparents, we recommend that you model that behavior, because they are going to be more likely to do what you do. So while it may not be the law in every situation to wear a life jacket, we really advocate that whenever you're on a boat, you do so. It can be very difficult if there is an accidental fall in the water, a collision in a boat. If you don't have it on, it is not necessarily an easy task to put a life jacket on while you are in the water.
You mean having it safely in the back of the boat under the seat near the cooler isn't a place to have it when the boat capsizes?
That's right. You're exactly right. Okay, so now we recommend that you always swim in a lifeguarded area. Now, especially here in Florida, we know that so many people have backyard swimming pools, and there is no lifeguard there. But if you are going to a public pool, a public beach, any waterfront, that you choose an area where there are lifeguards, or certainly at minimum that is designated for swimming. And the reason that is so important is because when you are designating swimming areas, you are looking at things like currents and drop-offs and dangerous marine life, that kind of thing. So only swim in areas that are designated for swimming, but the overwhelmingly preference is that you swim in areas that are protected by lifeguards. If no lifeguards are there, then it should be where there is constant, competent adult supervision for the activity that's going on in and around the water.
One of the things that, just back up, one of the things I noticed when Mike and I first started coming to Florida is, on the beaches, you have this long stretch of beach. Lifeguards are only going to be going from one side, for a certain period of time. So pay attention if you're not, if you're in the water and you're swimming with your, that you don't wind up migrating down the beach, because sometimes that can happen with currents, and all of a sudden you look and you're 15, 20 yards outside the lifeguard area. And a lot of times they'll blow their whistle and let you know that they're over, but not always.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a good practice to always keep an eye on how, can you see the lifeguards? Because if you can't see them, they can't see you.
Right.
So when you're in a situation when there is no lifeguard on duty, then we advocate whenever there is a group of adults, even if it's 2 adults and a group of children, that you designate a water watcher. And when you have that role of being a water watcher, the only thing that you should be doing is supervising the activity of the kids in the water. And we recommend that you do it on a rotational basis, because you're probably there to have fun, and we want everybody to have the opportunity to have fun, but we want everybody to go home safely too. So a water watcher should be at least 16. We want adult supervision there. Has the skills and knowledge and the ability to recognize and rescue somebody who's in trouble in the water. Beth, this goes back to your comment earlier about, I used to be a great swimmer. Am I now? If you are going to be in the position of being a water watcher, you need to be knowing what your skill level is to be able to handle an emergency. Right. And that includes knowing CPR. If wherever you're around water, you need to have the opportunity to call 911 to get emergency help on the way immediately if that's necessary. Now, we do not recommend that somebody who is untrained, that you go in the water and rescue somebody. Instead, we teach this concept of reach or throw, don't go. So having an object that you can reach out to somebody and they can grab a hold of, or an object that floats, like a ring buoy that you see very commonly at hotel pools and such, that they can throw to somebody that has a line attached, that you throw it to them, they grab a hold, and then you pull them back in. So I just read a report this week about a gentleman in the search and rescue team in Mississippi. They were in Pensacola, and his son got pulled out by a rip current. He went in to save his son, saved his son, and he drowned. That just happened in July. And so having equipment that can prevent you from becoming a victim too is so very important. So when you're a water watcher, you should be undistracted, alert, no alcohol. You know, it's an important role that you're in here. And we also say you need to be clearly identifiable to all. We often, in a group setting, it's an idea that everybody was watching, and so nobody was watching. And by having an object such as a water watcher card, like you see around the neck of the gentleman here, it makes it very clear to everybody, the people in the water as well as the people on the deck, that it is now his role, and this is what he is doing. So there's a sense of accountability for all.
So nobody's asking him to go inside to get the ice. So nobody's
right.
To watch the hot dogs and the hamburgers.
Yeah.
Go inside to go to the bathroom or whatever.
Exactly. Or even trying to have a conversation with them.
Right.
I mean, that can be a distraction that takes your eyes off, and yeah. And then, so we do recommend that you rotate, because again, everybody's there likely to enjoy the water. So rotate, so everybody has a bit of that responsibility. And as the water watcher rotates, then you pass the card off to the next person, and, you know, kind of make a big deal out of it. You're passing it off. You know, now it's like it's gone from David. Now it's going to be Bob, who is going to be our water watcher for the next 15 minutes. So again, everybody in the water knows, as well as everybody on deck. And you can make your own. There are many water watcher cards available, but the Red Cross has made a DIY project. This is one that I've made myself. I just used a card stock and took it to one of the office supply stores and had them laminate it for me, put a little hole in the top, I put a lanyard on it, and now this is a water watcher card. And you can make your own by going to redcross.org/waterwatcher. Okay, so we've been talking about things to do to prevent drowning from happening, but we also want to make sure that people know what to do in the event that something goes wrong. So first of all, it's being able to recognize the signs of someone who's in trouble in the water. It is not typically somebody splashing, yelling for help. It is most often quick, and it's silent. You might see some bit of a struggle at the surface, but it's all going to be ineffective, not a strong kick. You know, those are signs that something could be happening. Leaning forward a little bit, but not making forward progress. That's a sign that somebody's in trouble in the water. And that would be the point where you would get that reaching or throwing assist to them.
Yeah, I know that decades ago when I was lifeguarding, I mean, it's such a silent. It really truly they just slip underwater. Mm-hmm. You know, you just turn around and whoop, and they're gone.
Right.
So yeah, they could be behind another child. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not paying attention, or there's activity in one end of the pool, and you're not really, you know, it's not always a fall into the pool, you know.
Right. Oh, right. Absolutely. Yeah. A slip off of a noodle, or a blow up wrap, something like that.
They're already in the water.
Right.
Falling into the pool tends to be something that I think that probably maybe grabs your eye a little more. You know,
potentially, yeah.
There's a splash, or there's something that happens and you see it, or everybody turns that way. But if they're already in the water and they slip out of the thing, or they get splashed funny with water, and they take a mouthful of water, or they just and they just can slip under if they're already in the water. It's hugely difficult.
Right. Well, and even you think about, there's a pretty common scenario where a child sees a ball or something on the outside of the pool. Again, thinking about the non-swim time, everybody's out of the water. They see something, there could be crouched low in, they reach in and they just slide in very quietly too. So almost in any circumstance, it could be a silent issue.
Another is when they're in the shallow end of the pool and they're fine, and that ball or that toy goes off too far and they reach for it, and then all of a sudden they can't put their feet down under them anymore.
Exactly.
Brutal.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, so then also the ability to recognize and remove someone from getting getting them out of the water without getting in danger yourself. And this is where we talk about reach or throw, don't go. And then it's so important to get EMS on the way and begin CPR in a drowning situation. So the best case scenario is if you can make those two things happen at the same time. As soon as somebody's out of the water, somebody's making the call, and somebody's calling 911, and somebody is beginning CPR. And here we're talking about full CPR, which is a combination of chest compressions and breaths. In a drowning situation, the hands-only CPR, which you've probably heard about, is not as effective. You need to get breaths in to help stop that drowning process. So for kids and drowning victims, the breaths are super important.
You know, and I'll give a plug for taking the CPR classes through the Red Cross, because CPR and breaths on a 4-year-old are not the same as CPR and breaths on a 40-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, and so you really need to take the classes so that you can learn the difference between a puff of a breath for an infant and a full breath for an adult. You know?
Absolutely. And to have the confidence to act, because I think, you know, CPR is one of those skills that can be scary to somebody to provide, but my goodness, they can make the difference between life and death if it is done immediately. So here we say, you know, begin rescue breathing and CPR, and the ideal is those things happen at the same time, this call to 911 and starting that. And then of course, getting that EMS there to get them on their way to advanced life support. With these steps, as they happen quickly, that's going to improve the chances of somebody's survival, and survival with a positive outcome where they can, you know, that they are able to have, you know, a back to normal life. So there are some great things that you can do with your grandchildren or anybody in your care, the neighborhood children that you might babysit for. And one of the things that the Red Cross did in this time of COVID is we switched many of our resources that are typically done by school teachers or in your scout troops or you know, in any kind of, in your swimming lessons, where you would have somebody at this time of year, you know, in the summertime leading up, would be thinking, now we really need to get water safety top of mind for people. And because of schools shutting down, going everything to virtual, that was not going to happen in many places. And so we put our Water Safety for Kids program, which is Longfellow's Whale Tales, and WHALE is an acronym for Water Habits Are Learned Early. So we put that on our website. And so again, free to anybody. You can go to redcross.org/water safety for kids. And there are 8 topics on water safety. They're great videos that put children in a dilemma about water safety. And then you have some tools to be able to have a conversation with the children about what they are learning. So just doing the videos themselves are great, but we can also help you take it up a notch and make it so that there's more context to what they saw and they can be proud of what they are learning. So we're going to watch this video that is one of the segments. And we chose this one, Reach or Throw, Don't Go, because we really are trying to reinforce that message as we go through here with the importance of making certain that you are safe too if you see somebody in trouble in the water.
Well, yeah, before we start the video, though, you know, I think that it's important for people to realize and recognize, I just know that during my training that, you know, if somebody's in the water and is desperate and they feel like they're drowning, they're going to be, they can be very welcome, be very aggressive when you come over to them, and put you in a lot of jeopardy because they're going to try to climb on top of you. You know,
yeah, oh yeah,
out of the water, and if you're over your head and somebody is climbing over the top of you to try to get up, you can get into trouble really easy. So reaching and throwing before you go is such an important thing.
And having that equipment that's between you, because you know what they're doing there is trying to get to air. And if you take that flotation equipment often just the second they like, okay, I can breathe, it calms them down too.
Right.
So yeah, super, super important.
So let's watch the video.
Do your part, be water smart.
Do you know how to help if you see someone who's in trouble in the water? Here's a hint. Don't get too close. Call for help and reach or throw. Don't go.
Throw here, Zach. Woo!
Hey kids, the burgers are almost ready. 5 more minutes. Jackson, don't get so close to the deep end.
Tori, get in. I will. I gotta fix my goggles first.
Nick, catch this one.
Jackson! I have to go help him. No, wait. If he's scared, he could grab me and pull me under the water too. Then we'd both be in trouble. Longfellow says call for help and find something to reach or throw. Don't go. I'll do that. Mom! Jackson fell in.
Jackson!
Grab it. Hold on.
Jackson, are you all right?
She did exactly the right
job,
thing.
Tori.
She called for help, kept herself safe, and found something nearby to reach out to the person in trouble. Then she told him to grab it and hang on. Good work! You can also throw something that floats to the person in trouble.
Grab a hold. Grab the buoy.
Then you can pull the person in and still be safe.
Okay.
So, if somebody's in trouble in the water,
Reach or throw, don't go.
Do your part, be water smart.
Cool. Welcome back.
Okay, so here are some tools that can help you engage in their learning too. So if you just wanted to have a conversation about the video, here you'll see there are a few questions that you can engage with them. But there are also additional discussion points that if you wanted to go a little bit deeper in the conversation, you could. And it includes some activities that you might be able to do, whether it is, creating a situation of practicing a reaching assist. You create an imaginary pool edge and say, okay, here's how we do this. Because we teach this to kids at the very youngest ages as well. So in our swimming lessons as early as 5 and 6 years old, they are learning this concept of reach or throw, don't go to, and are practicing how to do that. But they're great. So each one of these topics, if you did the whole thing, it would take about 15 minutes maybe. There are a couple of other fun resources for the kids. They're separated by K through 2 and 3 through 6. So that, we have things like coloring sheets, crossword puzzles, word searches, how to make a safety post, different things that depending on the age group of the child, that would make more sense. Mm-hmm. And then there are fun quizzes, like 3 questions for each activity, each topic, and each age group. And then you can get a badge, and if that's okay with the family, that can be shareable on Facebook or LinkedIn, so they can be very proud of what they are learning, and you can be proud of what you're teaching your children and grandchildren. So we also have a mobile app. It's called Red Cross Swim, and it is chock full of water safety information. So it talks about different environments, some basics of water safety, some of which I talked about today, like water competency, the circle of drowning prevention, chain of drowning survival, but it also talks about safety and how to prepare for going to different environments. There are quizzes for adults to take as well. A lot of people like to play games on their phone. This is a great thing to do. And then there's also a kids section where you can watch the whale tail videos there, and they can take those quizzes right on your mobile device.
So good screen time.
Good screen time. You got it. You got it. Now, another cool thing about this app is you can track your child or grandchildren's progress through swimming lessons as well. So you can put your child's picture in and keep up with what it is they're learning using some of the other resources that they would get from Red Cross swim lessons. Within that, there's within each of the badges, there's a learn it and earn it section. And as they start to learn the strokes, there are videos of what would it be looking like for my child to be learning the front crawl at this point in their swim lesson. What should it look like as they're doing the elementary backstroke? And there are videos that show, you know, as a level 3 swimmer, this is what you should expect from your child. And these are the things that, as you start to see them incrementally progress, that your swim instructors are expecting to see, and you can help them improve at home.
Right.
So storybooks are also a great way to have a water safety conversation with young children. So I just listed a few of these on here. If you put in your search bar, water safety stories, swim lesson stories, there are many out there, but these are some that we're familiar with very much and integrate into our programming. Each one of these has a different storyline. One might be about, like, the polar bear wouldn't swim. He's, you know, nervous about his swimming lessons.
Yeah.
He's not really sure that, you know, he can do it. And so it, you know, it's kind of helping overcome some fears. Where swimming lessons with Stewie the duck talks about, you know, some real important guidelines about you should never swim unless there's a grown-up watching you. You should wear a life vest. And, you know, so there are great lessons that are taught here. Each of them is a little bit different, and you know, you never know which one might resonate with the child.
Gotta love Clifford. I grew up with Clifford, the big red.
Yes, Clifford takes a swim. You got it. Yeah, yes. Yeah. I mean, this is a great way to start the conversation with your children and keep having the conversation. It's not a one-time conversation,
Right.
something you should continue to do. And this is a great way to have that conversation. So that's it for me. Beth, any other questions as we wind up here?
You know, another thing that I happen to be thinking about while we went through it is, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot of deep water for people to drown.
No.
For people to get in the water. You think, oh, well, you know, they were just in one of those, like you were saying before, those little inflatable pools, those little plastic pools. And you're thinking, well, you know, it wasn't even a foot of water. Well,
yeah,
depending on the size of the child, depending on the, you know,
right.
You know, bathtubs, you're absolutely right. We have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
I like to think about it in terms of, you know, how much would I watch my grandchildren if we were in the parking lot at Publix?
Right.
Great point. I mean, would I be paying attention to whether or not they held my hand, or how close they were, or whether we were between cars? You know, that level of vigilance.
Absolutely.
When you're around water.
Right.
You know?
And, you know, one environment that we have not talked about at all today that is our buckets. You know, whether we're talking about cleaning supplies or just buckets that are sitting around your property that could be getting, you know, rainwater collection and such, your leftover from washing your car.
Right.
We think about a toddler, they're top heavy. If they can topple into a bucket and now cannot get out, they cannot get out. And so a child can literally drown in as little as 2 inches of water.
They get down in their head and their face and they're twisted around weird, and all of a sudden they've aspirated it. It's just, well, I thank you so very much, Connie. This has been a really cool, really informative, timely, you know, so many people are home right now with COVID too, and spending time and going to neighbors' pools and you know, we're all doing things just a little different right now. And I thank you very much, Connie. I thank you. I hope everybody here enjoys. And you can find out more. Take a look at this last slide for more information. And so hope that we can get together again. And maybe at Sunflower House, Connie, you can come do an live in-person presentation sometime.
I would love that. I would
That would be
absolutely
great.
love that. Yes, yes. And, you know, and I just want to kind of end here on my part with saying that, you know, drowning is preventable. And, you know, what we need to be so proactive around it, but, you know, but it's so worth it. You know, swimming and the water is so great, so fun, so refreshing, so many benefits that, you know, we don't want to scare people away from it. We want to empower you with what you can do to make certain that every day ends with smiles when you're around the water.
Oh man, swimming is such an essential life skill. I grew up around the water. And I think I was probably I know I was in the water before I was walking, you know, and my babies were too. So it's essential life skill. I would put it right up there with reading and
oh, absolutely.
You know, mathematics and learning to drive a car and all of those things.
Right.
It's a huge life skill. So I thank you so very much, Connie, and joining us for this caregiver conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.